Welcome to Mojoyminds.
When we think of Vikings, we think of longships, axes, and a very specific look, blonde hair and blue eyes. But there was a much darker engine driving the Viking Age, and a much more diverse reality behind those shields. Most people don't realize that the Vikings were the primary middlemen of the early medieval world, connecting the villages of Ireland, England, and the Slavic heartlands to the wealthy markets of the Middle East. This is the story of the thralls, the forgotten people who built the Viking wealth, and the truth behind the legend of the Black Viking. To understand the Viking economy, we have to look east. While some Vikings sailed west to loot monasteries, many more sailed south along the great rivers of modern-day Russia. They were heading for the glittering markets of Constantinople and Baghdad. In these cities, silver was flowing like water, and the one thing the elite wanted was labor. The Vikings realized that a single captive from a Slavic village was worth more than a dozen cattle. They called these people thralls, and they became the backbone of Viking society. Because the Vikings traveled as far as Morocco and the Caspian Sea, they were constantly bringing people from different backgrounds back to the north. This has led to a modern debate. Were there Black Vikings? To answer that, we have to look at the most famous Black Viking in history, a man named Geirmund Heljarsson. He was a powerful chieftain in Iceland, but he wasn't from Africa. He was the son of a Norwegian king and a woman from Siberia. In Old Norse, the word blr, which we often translate as black, was used to describe anyone with dark hair or a darker-than-average complexion. Because his mother was from the East, Geirmund likely had Central Asian features that made him look dark to his neighbors. Peeling back the layers of these legendary heroes to see the real, complicated humans underneath is what Mojoyminds is all about. We believe that the truth is always more fascinating than the myth. If you want to keep exploring the joy of uncovering the hidden side of history, make sure to subscribe to the Mojoyminds community. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the rest of this 4-part series. Now, let's see what science has to say about the Viking face. Recent massive DNA studies of over 400 Viking skeletons have revealed that the Viking Age was much more diverse than we ever imagined. Vikings weren't a race, they were a job description. The study found that many people buried as Vikings, with all the swords and jewelry of a Norse warrior, weren't genetically Scandinavian at all. They were people from Southern Europe and Western Asia who had joined the Viking culture. Scandinavia was a melting pot centuries before the modern era. The life of a thrall was incredibly harsh, but it wasn't always a dead end. In Viking law, a slave could sometimes buy their freedom, and their children were often born free. This meant that the Viking culture was being constantly reshaped by the very people they had captured. However, the trade eventually came to an end as Christianity spread, and the church began to ban the enslavement of fellow Christians. The Vikings had to adapt, shifting from being raiders to being kings. The wealth they accumulated through this ghost economy laid the foundation for the kingdoms of Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. In our next episode, we're going to follow this story even further south. We'll look at the children who were taken as a blood tax and turned into the most powerful soldiers in the world, the Janissaries. They were slaves who became the masters of an empire, and their story is even wilder than the Vikings. You won't want to miss part 3 of our series on the forgotten history of bondage.
Garantangi, till the next video.